Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about Richard Nixon. So, as always, this is continuing the series of how we're going to look at presidents, looking at the positive and the negative aspects of their presidency to really see how well did they do, because I feel like a lot of historians will try to look at a president and say, oh, this person was bad because I don't agree with their policies. But the problem is that, sure, you might not agree with a president's policies, but a lot of times those policies might have actually helped. So first of all, the positives. So first of all, Richard Nixon really kind of spearheaded the attempt to try and enforce detente with the Soviet Union. Detente is basically an arms control part, which really tried to mitigate or decrease the tension of the Cold War, especially after the 1950s and the 1960s. So that was really good. He also really opened up to China, and it was 25 years of isolation with communist China, and I think that was really bad for the country. And you can really see that Richard Nixon was really good at foreign policy, and he was really good at making deals. But I think probably his biggest foreign policy win was pulling out of Vietnam. This is a huge success. This was an issue that really, this is kind of an issue that really got him elected because he was able to really just use this. He was really able to just end the Vietnam War, bring the troops home, and I think that was really, really good. In fact, he even got rid of the draft thing and replaced it with a volunteer program, which was really good. He did also have some, some domestic policies. First of all, he signed the Clear Air Act into law, which is one of the first really big environmental acts ever passed. So I think that really helps. Another thing was the 26th Amendment, and this gave 18-year-olds the right to vote. Before it was 21. So, that was really good. But of course, Nixon was not a perfect president, of course. First of all, he tried to introduce this this wage control, price control, for 90 days on things like meat and housing, and that really did not work. There was not enough incentives for those who were selling these products, and that really hurt the economy, and the economy was already going through stagflation, so that really hurt the economy. He also really used his presidential power to go after his enemies. He had a list of enemies, and this was one of the reasons why he would eventually be impeached, or would lead to his impeachment, a bipartisan impeachment effort. But I think everyone knows Richard Nixon for this one thing. That's Watergate. So Watergate, really, this is probably the biggest political scandal in the history of the United States. And it's the reason why after every single scandal, you have the word gate after it. There's even things like Fartgate, which is funny. Look that up. That was a funny thing. But what happened was during the 1972 campaign, Richard Nixon had some operatives that were associated with this campaign pretty much broke into the Democratic National Committee headquarters in Washington, D.C., known as the Watergate Complex. And they were trying to dig up any dirt or get some information about how they could fight against the what's the name? The George McGovern campaign. And that was a really big deal. And while it would take 4 years, or actually 2 years for him to actually get impeached, he would eventually resign, being the first president in the history of the let me see. It was eventually found out that he was liable for it, and he decided to resign from the presidency. And he's the only president in American history that has ever resigned from the office of the president. So that was really big back then. What eventually would happen, of course, is that his vice president, Gerald Ford, would become president, and that's going to be tomorrow's topic. So yeah, that was the video. Overall, Richard Nixon, really good foreign policy, some good domestic things, but also he was a really corrupt president, and I think he was just definitely not good on that front. So not a terrible president, but definitely just he had this really big belief that the president could do no wrong, that president couldn't do anything illegal. So that's really it. So, yep, that's the video. Share your thoughts in the comments. Bye.